Well, hey, everybody, welcome to the Seeing Ability Podcast, where we're having a conversation about the world of people with disabilities. And that's going to mean sometimes we're going to be talking to adults who grew up as that kid with a disability. Other times we're going to be talking to families who either are or have raised children with differences, or we're talking to people that support that community. So it could be people in education, in healthcare, in nonprofits. First thing, I know you're busy. I know you've got a lot of choices when it comes to listening. So thanks for being with us today. And I think you're really going to enjoy. I've got a fellow dad in this room and a fellow author. You'll hear more about that in a minute. Steve Harris is our guest. Steve, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jim. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Absolutely. We want to get to know you a little bit outside of the world of disability or disability parenting with our Fast Four. So this is brought to us by our friends at Reliable Tech Help. So again, for if you have any tech issues, you're swearing at your computer, 502-797-7399. Let's start out with, what is your favorite food?
Jim, I'd have to say pizza. My,
I
my
mean,
wife says she could eat pizza every day, and I agree with her. Nothing better than a good pizza.
I love it.
Yeah.
If we got into your playlist, what kind of music would we find?
I've been around so long that the Beatles were a new group when I first started listening to rock and roll. I got honed in on them, and they've never left. I'm not sure there's any music after the Beatles. I'm sure there is, but I'm a big Beatles fan.
All Beatles all the time.
Yeah.
What about something you're enjoying these days? Maybe a streaming show you're watching, a movie you've seen recently, a book you're reading.
I'm a big baseball fan. I love to read baseball biographies, especially some of the classic stuff, Babe Ruth, some of those old guys and old teams, and I love that stuff.
Fantastic. And then last but not least, what about a place somewhere around the world either you've been to and you'd love to go back, or maybe a bucket list place you've never been?
I grew up in Santa Clara, California, and a little bit south of San Francisco. We were close to a beach, so anytime I can get on a beach, I'm a happy man.
Kind of soothes the soul, doesn't it?
It does, yep.
Fantastic. Well, great. Thanks for letting us get to know you a little bit. I think we'll start where most of us start as parents of kids with differences, and that's give it a little background for our listeners about you, your story, kind of how you got into, what do I say sometimes, this club we never planned to join.
Sure. I'm the dad of two sons, Matthew and Andrew, both of whom are disabled. Matthew was born October 13th, 1980. We were living in Worcester, Massachusetts. We were so excited that day to go into the hospital. It was our first child, and it just seemed like just a perfect morning, a perfect day. When he was born, a little bit past 11 o'clock that morning, the doctor, all of a sudden, the mood in the delivery room had been very upbeat and happy and chatty with everybody, and all of a sudden, as Matthew was being born, I could tell that the atmosphere changed. The doctor looked pretty, his back stiffened, and he looked at me and he said, "We have spina bifida here." I had never heard of the term. It took me days before I could figure out how to pronounce it. All of a sudden, this happiness disappeared, and we were in a kind of a crisis. It was a crisis situation, but there was a nurse there sitting, helping around the bed, and she seemed kind of excited by it. I actually saw her smiling as she looked around, and I just could not figure that out. Why, in this moment of crisis, why was this nurse smiling? She blurted out all of a sudden, "Gee, what a great coincidence." She said, "I'm taking a grad class on spina bifida." So to her, it was somehow this was a positive thing. I was in shock at the moment, but I didn't answer her. But about 10 minutes later, after Matthew had actually been rushed out of the room to go to a surgery, the same nurse came up to me and she said, "You know, I told you I'm taking a grad class on spina bifida. Here's the textbook that we're using for that class." And she started to hand me this book, must have been about 6 inches thick. And she said, "Maybe you'd like to read it." I thought immediately, no, I don't want to read a book, especially, a textbook about spina bifida. she walked away. But even in that moment, now, a million things happened that day and since, but even in that moment, I thought, I don't need a textbook right now on spina bifida. But I wonder what a dad like me does need. What do I need to hear today?
Right.
And somehow a seed got planted in me that, again, over many, many years, eventually led to a book. I'm a writer, and so writing was always been a way for me to kind of figure out what I'm thinking. But that moment was it changed my life. I mean, for obvious reasons. I had a son who was fighting for his life, but the idea of reaching out to people, especially dads, there was something about being a dad that I wanted to connect with, or certainly was one. What is it we need to hear? So Matthew's birth that day led to many, many things. He was in intensive care for the first year of his life because of not just a spina bifida, but he had many other complications. And his whole life became pretty much a medical, we seemed to bump from one crisis to the next. But let me quickly say, amazing young man, a spirit that I've never seen in anybody else. I've never saw him, for all he went through, Matthew was never bitter or angry or even questioning. He lived his life a moment at a time. And he fought for his life in a way that I just can't even begin to describe. He passed away in 2020, just a few days short of his 40th birthday.
Wow.
I miss him every day, but he became kind of my hero, my Matthew. So his brother Andrew was born 8 years later, and it did seem to be the perfect hospital delivery and birth. Seemed to be fine, but within a few years, we noticed that he wasn't hitting the benchmarks, as they say, and the doctor ordered tests, and we were told that he had cerebral palsy. So that kind of was another, I won't say a different club, but a different version of the same club. In his life, Andrew is still with us. He's 37 years old now. He lives in a group home, a medical group home. We live in southern Minnesota, and he lives a little bit west of Minneapolis. But so the journey we walked was with two sons with different but very debilitating disabilities. The feelings that we went through, I went through, I guess like any dad, you're in shock. Then you feel really sad because this is not what you expected to, this was not the life that you had hoped it would be for your sons or for you. It was, there were times of real anger of trying to figure out why is all this happening? What is it that, what's the meaning and the purpose behind all this? And it raises all kind of deep, troubling questions that can look like anger. So lots of different feelings. It also led to, in my book, I talk about the parade. When you have a child who is diagnosed with a disability, all of a sudden you've got a parade of people that come marching through your life, starting with doctors and nurses and therapists and specialists and social workers and case managers, and that parade just gets more and more populated. It can be overwhelming to deal with all those people and all that's going on, that's swirling around you. There are times when it gets to be so much you just wish the whole thing would end, but you don't want it to end because these people are helping your child. They're bringing the care and the expertise that they need to stay alive. But it does get overwhelming. And back to the early thoughts about, I think for dads especially, there are some unique experiences in being the parent of a child who is disabled. For many reasons and complicated, I'm not smart enough to figure them all out, but I think that dads, well, let's face it, we are kind of wired to be fixers. We're wired to be the ones who will step in and protect our child from anything that's going to bring them harm. Real quickly, we find out that we can't do it. We can't fix it. There's things that we just won't even be able to touch. So that frustrates us, and maybe that creates some of the anger. But it also puts us in a place that I'll say it this way: I think at times people don't know what to do with us because
Right.
moms are often seen as kind of the natural caregiver and nurturer, and dad is standing back there, and I don't know, it can be isolating, and we feel like we don't know quite where we belong. And this parade that I talked about is marching through our life, and where do we fit in this parade? We're certainly not running the parade. At times we might back off into the crowd and be almost invisible, but and that's not good. But dealing with all those different people as the dad it is hard, and we have to find our way in it and find the way to deal well with the people that are marching through our child's life. I also mentioned that it's a parade that's moving, and that people will come into that parade. They will also march out of that parade. Doctors, nurses, whoever they come in for maybe a short time, maybe a longer time, but you have to get used to the transitions that are taking place, and that can be kind of difficult. So, in some cases, I hate to say this, but in some cases, you're kind of glad when some marchers leave because there can be some wonderful people, but there can be some difficult people in difficult situations. Overall, though, I'm totally grateful for the wonderful people that we met along the way and still are meeting that are helping to care for my children.
I
But
wanted to ask you a question
sure,
about that initial stage. You mentioned all the different feelings, the emotions. I'm sure you sometimes talk to new dads, especially I know you're involved in mentoring and things like that. What advice do you give for a dad who's just in that beginning stage where they're kind of flooded with that range of emotions you talked about? Advice to kind of acknowledge that stage, but also work through it.
hmm, that's a good question. I think of that often. If I was in a hospital today talking to a dad whose child was just born, first of all, I think I would just be quiet and just kind of be there for them and not feel like I had to say something right away. But given the chance to talk, I would say take a breath. This is all very overwhelming. You're not going to be able to process all of this quickly. So, be easy on yourself and just take it slow at first, but quickly connect with those places and people and resources that are going to help you.
Mm.
That these are life-changing and can be life-shattering moments. Get the help that you need. I said in the book that looking back now, and we're looking back on almost 40, 50 years of this, I should have gotten into counseling the first week. I should have connected with somebody the first week. I should have connected with, I wish I had been able to connect with other dads quickly, maybe not the first week, but first weeks or months.
Sure.
That don't go through this alone. You're going to need some help, and don't feel like that's a failure on your part or a weakness on your part. Take the help that's there for you, your wife, your family, because this is tough stuff. Especially, and I'm looking at I mentioned briefly that Matthew was in intensive care for a year.
Right.
To be in intensive care for a couple of days is difficult.
Mm-hmm.
To live in that unit for a year, it felt like a war zone. In fact, I was doing some reading recently that said that some studies are showing that dads and moms who are spending any amount of time in a neonatal intensive care unit are really prone to PTSD. Now,
Mm.
I had only thought of that in terms of like, guys who'd gone off to
Sure.
a war, but the the intensity of that place and that experience can lead to really long-lasting effects. So
Mm.
back to what I just said, find some help, get the help that you need, the support that works for you. It may be family members, it may be a friend, it may be a therapist, a doctor, a nurse. I don't, it doesn't matter who you connect with, but somebody that you can talk to, that you can listen to, that you can cry with, that you can be angry with, that you can express yourself so that because you're going to be feeling a lot of different emotions. Don't do it by yourself.
I love
So
that. And it probably really important to hear because some of us men were not so good at asking for help and admitting that we don't have it
right,
all together.
you're right. I think that's part of that wiring too. I think for some reason I've heard a number of people tell me this that dads, for whatever reason, just are a little more hesitant to pull back. I mean, they pull back and are not eager to show some of that stuff. And we're all different, and the journeys we walk are all unique. But if I was going to say a couple of broad strokes, get the help you need. Find some place where you can express what you're going through and what you're feeling.
Yeah, I love that. I want to talk, you talked about not doing it alone, and I want to talk a little bit about isolation. But first, we're going to take a short break. When you have a kid who is different, all your ducks need to be in a row, especially your money. Cam Howell with Primerica knows the joys and challenges as he and his wife raise their medically fragile son, Brooks. Cam brings over 14 years of experience to help his clients be protected, have a plan for the future, reduce debt, and connect to resources. Get your financial house in order so that you can enjoy every moment with your child. Reach out today at 502 803 5075. And now back to the show. So, Steve, you mentioned not doing this alone. Talk to me a little bit about that potential risk for isolation and how families need to really be aware of that and work to combat that.
I think the risk of the isolation is that it's unhealthy. It becomes a physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually unhealthy to not be connecting somehow with people who are sharing this experience. That we need that. We were not created to be walking through these things alone. So it's really important to do, however it works for you. I think one of the nice things these days, the technology is allowing us to connect in ways that it didn't. When
Mm-hmm.
Matthew was born in 1980, some of the things I'll just mention here didn't even exist. But in fact, Jim, you and I met kind of through a dad support group, David
Right.
Hirsch, Special Fathers Network. So it's a organization, a nonprofit that brings dads together in very comfortable, easy ways. I'm in a group now every Tuesday night. There's about 6 or 7 of us dads. One's in Chicago, one's in Kentucky, I'm in Minnesota. So we Zoom together. We talk for an hour. How's it going? What was tough this week? What wins did you have? Doing that kind of thing. Now, I'm mad at myself, not mad at myself, but I think, I needed this 30 years ago,
Right.
but here I am. So I still need it today. But anyway, making some kind of connections there are a lot of groups out there. There's a whole big nonprofit group that does just for parents who are having NICU experiences. So there's all kinds of ways to connect, and of course, books and things like that. But I would encourage dads to reach out and find what works for you. It's the risk of being isolated is too big. It hurts us. It hurts our marriage. It hurts our parenting, uh, job performance.
Mm.
So many parts of our lives in fact, every part of our life is impacted by what we're going through as the dad of a child who is disabled. I
Yeah.
think that it was said to me once that, that my child is disabled, but the disability kind of it comes into the family. It's not an
Mm.
isolated disability. All of us are affected. And it can be, and let me quickly say too, it can be a good thing. I mean, there are positives about it, but just be aware of how much of an impact it's having on every area of your life.
I love that. Yeah. And I think the big fear of isolation is that you kind of think, unless you get that connection, you kind of think you're the only one that knows what it's like to go through this, or you're the only one facing this program, these challenges. And even though you might connect to people with a variety of, say, diagnoses or disabilities, the commonality is so strong that, like, just connecting to other people who kind of feel what you're feeling is really life changing for
It
people.
is, it is, and it's really essential to making it through this.
Yeah, so tell it for folks who aren't familiar, mention again David's organization. I know I actually have plans to bring him on in one of my
Oh,
nonprofit
great.
spotlights, but tell us a little more about that group and how to find them.
Sure. It's called the Special Fathers Network, 21st Century Dads. David
Yeah.
Hirsch, HIRSCH, in Chicago. It's a Gosh, he does a podcast too, and he's had a number of books, and is reaching out in incredible ways to hundreds of dads across America. And again, these mostly small groups that meet on the internet and find ways to support each other. They do a couple of in-person things each year, but it's called
Yeah.
the Special Fathers Network.
Fantastic. Yeah, look that up, especially, and share this with other dads. And speaking of people who are listening, who are kind of watching and observing the dads in their world that are traveling this journey, what advice would you give to people on sort of, I hate to say the care and feeding of dads, but like
Mm,
how do others support dads who are going through this? Because as you said, understandably, a lot of focus initially goes to the mom, and that's warranted. But
mm.
sometimes it's like, oh, what do we do with dad?
Right, right. Well, thanks for asking that, because I think I wrote the book that I wrote for dads, but it's also for the people that, like you just said, are somehow caring for those dads or who care about them. It might be
Hmm.
obviously a spouse, it might be a family member, best friend, colleagues at work, the doctors who work with us, the nurses, so many people, back to that parade thing. But my hope and desire is that dads will be seen in those settings, that they will at least have a sensitivity that this dad is going through a life-changing event here. Be aware that this is possibly overwhelming this guy, and be sensitive to that. Not for the sake of the dad so much. I mean, that's certainly the support that we get is important to us, but a stronger and supported dad is a better dad and can help the child. This ultimately is about our kids, making sure that we do all we can to help them reach the potential that they have in their life. But if you can be aware of the dad, be supportive of the dad, it may be in some ways, this is not real, um, it's not rocket science. If I had people early on, Jim, who had come to me and said, "How are you?
Right.
How are you doing in all this?" Take 2 minutes and just kind of recognizing that your child's in crisis, and we all care, and the center of attention should be on your child. But how are you? A shoulder, an arm around a shoulder at a certain moment. This stuff is not, you don't have to have huge knowledge about hardly anything, except that you would have a sensitive heart to say, this dad is going through a tough time. How are you doing? Is
Yeah.
that, I
Well,
mean, what do
like
you think? What do you
we
think of that?
said before, sometimes dads aren't just going to pipe up themselves and say, "Hey, I'm depressed. Hey,
No, no,
I'm feeling guilty. Hey, I've got all these issues." So people might assume, well, they didn't say anything, so they must be fine.
right.
And that's probably
You're
the
right.
wrong assumption.
You're right. You're right. We do that, and it takes a courage. It takes a certain courage, maybe, because it's not an easy situation. If
Right.
somebody came into me, say those first days, and we're in an ICU, the whole thing is overwhelming to everybody, and it's
Yeah.
people back off because they don't know what to say. They're afraid they might say the wrong thing, so they don't say anything at all. We are dealing with so much, we don't know what to say, and all of a sudden it's kind of like anyway. So just reaching out in simple, small ways to help them be seen. I would love to be available to doctors and nurses as they're getting trained to say, be aware that those parents, and especially the dad, is having kind of some unique stuff going on here. Be aware of them. Be sensitive to that, because the more you can help them, the more you can help that child.
Yeah, I love that. And
Mm.
I think that's so important because, as dads, as men, we sort of sometimes have this idea that we're, like you said, we're supposed to be the protector of our kid, of our family. We're supposed to be the one that kind of keeps everything together. And sometimes we don't have it together, but
Right.
we're not probably going to pipe up and say that unless someone says, like you said, just this is a lot to go through. How we know your kid is struggling. We know we're all there to support your spouse, significant other. How are you doing?
How are
Just say,
you?
how are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great advice.
Mm.
So let me ask you this: if we could have dads that are going through this, just kind of tune into this tiny segment of the podcast, and you could speak to them directly. If you could be that chair sitting next to them in the NICU and just talk directly to dads through this podcast, what would you say to them?
Well, great. Some real simple things. Number one, hang in there. This is going to test you to your very core. So hang in there. Be there for your child. They're going to need all kinds of help and support to make it in their life, from doctors, from nurses, from teachers, from all kinds of helpers. But no one is more important than you. Your child needs you as a dad. All kind of studies show that kids who are growing up without dads in their lives don't do as well. Well, what about the child growing up who has special needs if dad's not there? I mean, it can only get harder for them. So dad, number two, be there for them. Number three, I'd just like to say a special or a direct word to them and say thank you. If we're talking to dads right now who are going through this, it could be day one, it could be 2 years down the road, it could be 10 years down the road. Thank you for being there for your child. Thank you for all you're doing to help them in all the ways you can. It is not easy. It's sleepless nights. It's all kinds of worry, and that doesn't go away. I mean, I'm at the point in my life now where I still have worries and concerns about my child, but I'm trying to be there and want to be there to help him, and having a sense of the value of that is important. So I guess what I'm saying is, Dad, thank you. Thank you for all you're doing. Know how valuable it is that you are the gift that you're giving to your child. There's nothing better than that. Jim, there was a word that showed up on, and I circled this on page 57 in your book. It said, give grace to people.
Yeah.
I think I love that word. I love without God's grace, I wouldn't be here today. We need to give ourselves grace in the journey. We need to give grace to the people around us who are sometimes seeing us, sometimes not. But that grace would sustain us through this on this path, because it's unique, it's challenging, but with grace we can do it.
Speaking of the book, my book that you read, we've got your book. Tell us again the name of the book. If folks are thinking, hey, I want to get a copy of this, where do they find it?
Yeah, Dads Like Us is it's available on Amazon and all those kind of places. I have a website, steveharrisauthor.com. If you want to connect with me directly, I'd be glad to get that book to you. But it's on Amazon and things like that. So I'm eager to see it out there. I'm eager to see dads read it. I'm eager to see that, like we talked about a few minutes ago, people who are caring about those dads, because it's an attempt to say this is what it was like for me. And again, every person's journey is different and personal.
Yeah.
But I think especially for the dads who are just entering this world, I think it can be very helpful. It's not a textbook. It's not thick. It's less than 120 pages, but just give you some stuff to think about as you head on the journey.
I love it. And thank you for sharing your story. Let me ask you this. We've been talking a lot about the challenges, the obstacles along this journey, and how to support dads through those. Talk to us a little bit about the joy and the upside, the parts of the journey with both of your kids that you probably never would have had if they didn't have these extra challenges, and the joyous parts it's brought to your life, and the joyous things about your two sons.
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because that's the stuff I love talking about most. As I said, Matthew was an amazing person. His ability to laugh, to enjoy laughter, and to make people laugh was unlike anybody I've ever known, even in the midst of all kinds of stuff, many surgeries and all kinds of difficulties. But just an amazing human being. Andrew, his brother, is has the sweetest spirit. He's a marvel to me. We learned later in their lives that what they had was something called Pelizaeus-Merzbacher disease, which is a progressive neurological disease. So that has a decline to it, and there's no cure for it. So what I'm having to learn and had to learn is to enjoy my children every day. To somehow, because they're to see them for who they are today, to enjoy the times of laughter or just everyday stuff that's fun with them, but to be very grateful. They taught me to be grateful for life as it is, not just sad about how I wish it had been, not even, fearful about what's coming, but to take it a day at a time, to enjoy them for the people that they are, created in the image of God for his purposes, that they are a gift. Matthew's name means a gift of God. From moment one, he was a gift of God to me. His brother is the same. So they have helped me to see life better, to enjoy life deeper, to have a sense of values, what's really important in life, to learn how to be proud of them in ways that, in new and kind of unique ways. But yeah, my life is richer and fuller and deeper because of my sons. I wouldn't trade a moment for any of it.
Fantastic. Well, Steve, thank you so much for being here today. I know folks listening, I was just sitting on the edge of my seat listening to you talk and share your story. Everybody listening probably has somebody in their life that needs to hear this episode. So, audience, I'll put you to work. I need you to like this episode. I need you to share it. Think of those dads out there in your world who really could be comforted by hearing Steve share his story. Think of those organizations you work with that have dads within their realm that, this is under 40 minutes long, but it could really be that perspective that they need. We would love your help. So go to my Facebook page, like the episode, whatever your favorite podcast platform is, share it with other people. We're also looking for future guests. So if you have dads like Steve or parents that are raising kids or have raised kids with disabilities, maybe you know someone who is that person who happens to live life in a wheelchair, but they're an amazing young adult, and we'd love to have them on and have them share their story about their childhood and what did their parents do that influenced their path. And then again, once a month, I do a nonprofit. So somebody who is doing this work on the front lines and supporting this community all across the U.S. We had the privilege of featuring lots of different nonprofits. I spent 23 years in the nonprofit sector, so I'm kind of a sucker for a good cause, and I love shining a light on them. So we'd love your ideas about future guests. Steve, any final advice, just overarching advice for parents who are on this path?
You're going to make it. You're going to get through this. There are moments when it feels like you won't, but day at a time, sometimes an hour at a time. But you're going to make it. And again, thank you for being a parent to your child who is disabled. They need you. They love you, and there's nothing more important on earth that you could do.
Steve, couldn't have said it better. Thank you so much for the book you put out in this world, for dads especially, sharing that story, and for being with us here today. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jim. It's great to be with you.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next time.